Hi, my name's Kim J and I'm a visually impaired chef. I'm also a volunteer for RNIB and I've wrote two recipe books called A Taste of Spice, which is Indian cuisine, and A Sense of Cooking. Now the books are in large print with all profits going to RNIB. Today I'm going to make one of my favourite desserts. It's an Indian dessert called Kulfi. Kulfi is an ice cream. It's very easy to make and the ingredients that you'll need are about 4 pints of whole fat milk. It's got to be whole fat. Don't go for semi-skimmed, whole fat is the best. And you're going to need 25 grams of almonds, which we are going to peel and chop up, 25 grams of cashew nuts, which we're going to chop up, 25 grams of pistachio nuts, which I've peeled and again we're going to chop up, half a teaspoon of cardamom powder. Now if you can't get cardamom powder, don't worry about it. A pinch of saffron and caster sugar. And those are the ingredients for this Indian dessert called kulfi. I've got a large pan here. It's heavy based pan and I'm pouring the milk into the pan and we're going to put the hob on. And we're going to bring the milk to boil. Now quite often I get asked, how do you know when the milk is boiling when you're visually impaired? Because you can't see the bubbles. You can hear them, but I also use this thing. Now it's like a metal disc, approximately 2 inches thick. It's called a boiler alert. You can use this in any liquid. If you put that into the milk, and when the milk starts to boil, you'll hear the sound of the boiler alert, so you know that the milk is boiling and you can either switch it off or put it down to simmer. So I'm going to bring the milk up to boil and then we will then put it to simmer. The milk has come to a boil and if you can hear, there's a slight sort of metallic clinking. That's my water boiler alert. I've put the milk down to simmer. Now I'm going to cook this milk and keep on simmering it until the quantity becomes half. So you're left with half the mixture, and every so often I'm going to stir it and keep on doing that until that milk becomes half the quantity it was before when we first started. This milk has been simmering on a sort of medium to high simmer for about an hour. Now the pan, it will catch on the pan, and yes, sorry, I've got to confess, washing the pan afterwards is hell and you need to soak it for a while, but it is worth it, I promise you. Now it's approximately half the quantity, so that's of milk, and we're now going to add sugar. Now you add sugar to taste, so I'm going to start off by putting approximately 4 tablespoons of sugar, letting it dissolve and then testing it to see if it's to my taste. Now into that I'm going to put half of the cardamom powder. Like I said, if you can't get this, don't worry, it doesn't really matter. And now I'm going to let it boil again until again it's about half the quantity. Now at this stage this milk has gone to a light caramel colour. It is denser than it was before and you can feel the skin where it's caught at the side of the pan. So carry on simmering this for about another 45 minutes until it's again half the quantity. Almonds, now they need to be peeled and chopped, and if anyone's ever tried peeling almonds, they are very difficult to peel. So there is an easy method. I've got a large bowl here and I put the almonds into the bowl, and then I'm going to pour water on top, enough to cover it. Now I'm going to put these almonds into the microwave and I'm going to cook them for about 1 minute. And just in case you're wondering who's talking, that's my talking microwave. Fabulous microwave. It's a combi one, so it's got the ability to do what your oven does as well as microwave. So I set up the
high power microwave, 1 minute, start.
And put it
high
on.
Power microwave,
and what you're doing
1 minute.
is you're boiling the almonds into the water, and then once it's hot, bring it out and leave it to cool for at least 15 minutes. I'm going to blitz half of the pistachio nuts. Now, if you don't have a blitzer, don't worry, you can chop it by hand. With the other half, I'm going to sort of chop finely. I like the two sort of sets of pistachio because it gives it added texture to the kulfi. And then you just blitz the pistachio down. And once I've done that, I'm just going to put it to one side. I'll do the same with the cashew nuts. Half the cashew nut splits, the other half chopped finely. The almonds have cooled down and it is so easy, this bit. All you do is rub the almonds between your fingers and you can feel that that skin is loose, and as you're rubbing it, it's just a case of rubbing it and give it a little bit of a tug and your almonds are out. And that's how you peel almonds the easy way, without any effort. Half of these I'm going to chop finely and the other half I'm going to put in the blitzer. This milk is now a quarter of what we originally started off with. It is thick, still quite liquidy, but you can feel the thickness. And for those that have got colour, it's a lovely golden caramel colour. And when you sort of stir it, you can feel bits of textured pieces in there, and that is the skin and the bits that have caught on the pan all mixed together into that, and that's what gives it its lovely caramel flavour. So as I'm stirring, I'm scraping the side of the pan and just getting all that formed caramel into the milk. Now I'm going to switch the hob off and I'm going to add the remaining cardamom powder, and I'm also going to add those finely half the amount of chopped nuts, and now I'm going to let it cool. And once it's cool, I'm going to put it into dishes ready for the freezer, and then put the rest of the ingredients on top as a garnish. So just let that cool down and let those flavours just infuse into this milk. Kulfi's done, and I put it into tiny little pots ready for the freezer. Now if you don't have tiny little pots, use like a margarine box or a small plastic container. And on top of this kulfi, I'm going to sprinkle those chopped nuts that we put on one side, just to garnish. Now I'm going to try a little bit of this. It is utterly delicious. You don't need to put it in the freezer. You can just have it as a dessert in itself. And little, oh wow, that is delicious. Rich, creamy, the nuts in it just accentuating the milk, and it is well worth trying. Now you have a recipe for a great dish, but when you're in the kitchen there are certain safety guides and rules that you should adhere to, and which keeps you safe. Now one of the things that I do before I start cooking is I make sure that I've got shoes on that are sturdy with good grips. I make sure that there's nothing on the floor that I can trip over, and there are no spillages or liquid or condensation on the floor that makes it a bit of a hazard. Now, before cooking, the first thing that you do, as we all know, is wash our hands thoroughly. And especially when you're dealing with raw meat at every stage, wash your hands thoroughly. It stops cross-contamination. It keeps you and your family safe. When you're using the oven and the hob, know your oven and hob really well. Now I use tactile markings so that I know exactly what temperature to put the oven on and what setting, so that I've not put the grill on when I should be putting the oven on. Now with the hob, whenever you're sort of putting anything on the hob, make sure the handle is not sticking out. Now, I like to keep the handle at approximately 10 to 12. And the reason for that is it's not near enough to the unit for you to accidentally knock it off. It is not over another hob which may be on, so the handle's getting hot. So this is the safest position. Now, if you're boiling anything, be very, very careful. Don't fill the pan up too much. And if possible, use the boiler alert, which tells you when that liquid is bubbling away and it's hot, and it keeps you safe. If you're not comfortable with the hob and the oven, use the microwave whenever you can. It's a lot safer. And every time you are taking things out of the oven or from the microwave, because remember, plates and dishes get extremely hot in the microwave, use oven gloves. Now, I like to use thermal oven gloves. They're a lot safer. Don't be tempted to use tea towels or anything else. And they literally go to extreme temperatures, so you're very safe with them. Whenever you cut any food in the kitchen, use safe cutting methods. Keep the blade away from your fingers, so set it a couple of millimeters away from your fingers, and that way you're safe all the time. Now, if you're not confident with a knife, you can use appliances like food processors. Make sure you know how they work properly, and keep safe. And if you're still not confident, ask somebody else to do it. It is better to be safe than have an injury. If you have any cuts or you cut yourself whilst you're in the kitchen, put a plaster on it. And if you have a burn, run it under cold water. And if it's bad, you seek medical advice straight away. Whenever you cook meat, always ensure that the meat is thoroughly cooked, because you know, raw meat will give you food poisoning. Now, the best optimum temperature to cook meat is between 66 degrees and 73 degrees. Use a food thermometer if you're not too sure. They do have talking food thermometers, which you can get quite easily. And you store the meat as soon as you can. As soon as it's cooled down, store it straight away in the fridge and read the advice on storage on the labels.